Early human development, this is when sperm, or one sperm, hopefully, is trying to fertilize or reaches the egg and is going to fertilize the egg. I have this in loop, so it just keeps playing. It's fast, I couldn't slow it down. So you have the egg, it has a zona pellucida. That is the glycoprotein, it's sugar protein envelope that surrounds that egg, and it's going to surround the early embryo. Okay, that's here. The actual cytoplasm and the plasma membrane of the oocyte is here. It's got little cortical granules. They're the red little vesicles that are all out here, and they're stationed and they're ready to go. Okay? So what happens is the sperm enters, binds, penetrates. It causes a calcium wave that starts where the sperm enters, and the calcium enters and fluxes in a huge wave across the entire egg. This calcium wave that spreads across, so sperm comes in, plasma membrane binds, triggers the calcium wave. It causes release of those cortical granules. Those cortical granules that are stored and ready and waiting fuse by exocytosis to the plasma membrane, and they release enzymes that cleave the zona pellucida. They harden, I heard Christina say harden the zona pellucida. That's what happens. So they make it quick, it's real quick, a few seconds, boom, changes the chemical structure, hardens it up. That prevents, notice this other guy gets stuck, can't reach now. No fertilization can happen. Chemical alteration of the zona pellucida. We call it hardening of the zona pellucida, okay? So they contact, recognize, and fuse with each other, the sperm and egg. There's a calcium wave beginning at the site of sperm entry. Calcium actually stimulates what we call egg activation and cortical reaction. Those cortical granules, vesicles, fuse and dump their enzymes. That is really important, and most people a long time ago would have said the zona reaction is specifically important for block to polyspermy. Okay, that makes sense. We can see that. It makes sense. Block to polyspermy, but I would argue even more important than that is preventing implantation at the wrong place and time. So remember I showed you the human embryos dividing? My friend at Stanford did that whole apparatus where she could view them right in the incubator. Now it's in IVF clinics. It's called EVA. Those embryos, when they reach the blast stage, they hatch. They take in fluid, they accumulate, they get bigger and bigger, and they hatch. They're hatching out of this protective zona pellucida. That is when they are able to implant at the right place and time in the uterus. If they hatch early, that's an ectopic pregnancy. Yes? Okay. Two functions then. Block to polyspermy, and I would add right there prevention of early implantation at the wrong place and time. This, notice, triggers the sperm pronuclei and female egg pronuclei. This process and this calcium wave and activation of the egg triggers the completion of meiosis 2. And I remember Lawrence mentioned this before. Meiosis 1 completes at ovulation. Fertilization happens, completes meiosis 2. So another polar body gets kicked off. That's the sign of meiosis 2 right here watching this upper window. Boom, polar body 2. And an embryologist in the lab, I can just look at embryos, and when they pop, 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 it's like popcorn, little polar bodies, fertilize, 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 fertilize. I can separate fertilize from non. Okay? So this is the overall sort of reactions that happen at early development, fertilization and early development. Male and female pronuclei, they then find each other, fuse. We call it syngamy, means the gametes are synergizing or fusing together. That restores the diploid chromosome complement, right? Diploid meaning they had half the genes, or half the chromosomes, now you got the complete set. Ideally, in the normal situation, it's 46, 23 pairs. Stimulates the zygotic metabolism and embryo cleavage. Within the first 24 hours now, it gets set up and it goes from 1 cell to 2, from 2 to 4, 16, and so on until you get to about day 5. Implantation from day 9 to day 11. This all happens right here. I've already showed you this diagram before. Implantation, typically end of the first week, beginning of the second week. It varies. It's hard to know exactly when, but this is what we would call a clinical pregnancy. Right here, we would not say this is a pregnancy. This is early human development, right? But this doesn't mean there's going to be an implantation and there's going to be an early placenta developing and that the corpus luteum is going to be making enough progesterone. That may or may not happen. Clinical pregnancy is boom, implantation, starting to make HCG. We can detect the HCG. That's what we call clinical pregnancy. Does that make sense? Okay. So early on, you have the trophoblast cells, you have the inner cell mass cells. It's dividing, it starts to invade. This syncytial trophoblast is just a fancy way of saying it's like a sheet of cells, and they're highly invasive. These act like a parasite. they go in and they multiply and take over and erode and eat away the tissue that's in there, and they form a space for themselves to nook and cranny it right inside that endometrium. So boom, 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 and then it elaborates and takes over further, grows and spreads out. This is going to become the placenta. This is going to become the actual embryo. This is going to become the amniotic sac that wraps around and ends up surrounding that early developing embryo. So if we look at the formation of the amniotic sac or the amnion, the chorion, which is parts of the placenta, and the yolk sac, which provides early kind of nutrients and fuel for that early developing embryo, that ends up resorbing and going away, right? So then nourishment is coming from the placenta and the chorionic villi, and then going through the umbilical cord, through the vessels, the arteries and the veins. From mom, blood is over here, fetal blood goes up inside here. Notice this chorionic cavity, here's the amniotic sac, here's the chorionic villi. They're like finger-like little projections that got elaborated from the trophoblast cells invading and becoming those projections. Maternal blood goes outside in between these. Fetal blood is up inside of those. There's no mixing. They come right up next to each other in the chorionic villi, and diffusion of gases and sugars and fats and molecules go back and forth. If we look at those chorionic villi, they're right up in here, okay? So here's the chorionic villi. Here's the fetal circulation, all up inside here, fetal circulation. Sinuses and blood vessels and stuff going around. This is all maternal. Okay, so in the chorionic villi of the placenta, which comes from maternal tissues and fetal tissues that make that little elaborate placental network, you've got fetal blood and capillaries and vessels on one side, maternal on the other side. So you've got arteries, veins, capillaries, all that. Okay, and this is development of the placenta. This is probably 12 weeks plus, so it's fully elaborate. We can see all these different vessels and structures. Another rendition of the same thing, I like this better from my anatomy text, shows umbilical arteries and veins. Here's the chorionic villi. These are made of the fetal circulation. Maternal circulation is on this side, bringing nutrients, oxygen, removing gases, right? So the veins and the arteries from the maternal side. So there's diffusion back and forth. So placental tissue comes from fetal and maternal sources and trophoblasts in the early embryo, and then the blood of the two never mixes but shares and exchanges a lot of the gases and nutrients and waste. It's about 13-week fetus. The placenta is pretty much fully functional. It's big enough, it's doing all this thing, it's making a lot of different hormones that are maintaining the pregnancy, maintaining the fetal development and growth, and affecting the woman as well. And when I say affecting the woman as well, there's a lot of estrogen and progesterone that are coming from the placenta that serves to not just allow this formation to keep developing and growing and happening, but restructures the female body. The metabolism, the deposition of fat, the growth of the breast tissue, the growth and changing of all the uterus and structures of the woman's body, including her metabolism, gets changed a lot by the hormones that are being made by the placenta and the fetus. This is approximately 12 weeks, and I brought these, we have a few minutes, so I'll just pass these around. If you didn't get a chance to look in that, I like them because they're true to scale. And I will just pass one. I'll keep these. You can take them out of the bag if you want. These are approximately 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks, and this is about 24 to 26 weeks. So this would be the beginning of the third trimester. Okay, so fits in the palm of your hand, may or may not make it. Yes? Okay, so, and then the full term one, if you guys want to just I'll pass this one. But you could take them out. The point of these is they're made to be really flesh-like or lifelike, sort of, and they're the right mass, they're the right feeling, and the right size. So they're so true to scale. And I will, there's a baby hydrate. Is this disgusting?
I don't know what to give it to. I was playing with it.
Okay.
Looks like it's
So, and I will say my babies are all bigger than this, so this is like light to me. But this is the mass of the uterus weight, the smooth muscle, the growth and the elaboration of the uterus, as well as the baby. This is near full term, so this is full term. It has the right weight and sort of texture. So if you want to know how it feels, like to carry, you can like put it there and sort of estimate, like, okay, how heavy would that? It's heavy. It's heavy. This whole thing's about 20 pounds. So
20 pounds to give birth.
this is not quite 20 pounds. This is a little under, but most women will gain about 25 pounds or more because of all of the mass.
Yeah, my mom too.
Oh, look at my capacity. Okay, so I'm passing those around, but still, let's talk about 12 weeks. So 12 weeks, this is pretty small. It's about 2 inches, a little bigger than like a big fat bean. Okay, so it's a little bigger. This is, all the structures are there. So we've talked about this already, right? Everything is laid down, the organ system, the structures are there. This is 17-week fetus, so a little bit bigger. Unable to survive 17 weeks actually, right? So mid-second trimester. No, doesn't even have, everything is not complex and functioning enough, especially when you talk about the lungs and the cardiovascular system. Pregnancy, what happens? Uterus starts in the anteflex position. This is non-pregnant or early in pregnancy. Baby gets larger, uterus starts growing upwards, right? Protruding out where the umbilicus region is, right? So usually there's a little bump. This is 20 weeks. Many women won't really show. I mean, no one knew I was pregnant. I could hide it till I was about 22, 24 weeks with jeans and shirts. Like, nobody knew. Some people, on the other hand, that are shorter or more petite and they don't have as long of a torso, they're already sticking out at like 16 weeks. They're like, oh, you can feel it. It's hard. The difference between a pregnant belly and like a pot belly, right, is it's hard. It's firm. The uterus, the baby, all that material protrudes out. You've got like a sack of water and tissues. That feels really hard to the touch. So start showing. Some women have their umbilicus or their umbilical, the belly button. The belly button is not that deep, so it's sort of shallow. And women that have a shallow belly button or an outie or a partial outie, usually the umbilicus will protrude. And it will start protruding, especially into the 3rd trimester. They try to designate it with that right there. I didn't have this, and I have some people, this belly button issue is a real issue because their belly button pops out and then it scratches on stuff and it gets irritated. So they have to put a Band-Aid on their belly button. You won't read about that in books, okay, but people do that. I didn't have to do that. I have a deep belly button, so it was all good. It like flattened out, but it didn't. If you have an outie or you have a shallow umbilicus region, a lot of times it pushes the inner tissue out, and so it comes out. That is approximately, that's like 24 weeks, end of the 2nd. Okay, nutritional requirements. Does a pregnant woman, and the textbook, our women's bio textbook, goes all into this. It talks about metabolic needs and nutritional needs of a woman who is pregnant. Do they need more or less calories than a non-pregnant?
Way more.
Way more, right? And you can look, the numbers vary, but it's a lot more. Also key is they need some vitamins and minerals at higher levels. The body, if you think about it, hello guys.
Calcium.
If you think about it, the body is forming another human being. Another human being is made of all those biological macromolecules that we talked about. Proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and nucleic acids, DNA, RNA, right? You need all those different fuels to build all those biological macromolecules, right? So a lot of a woman's, her glucose metabolism will ramp up. The fetus and the embryo are preferentially taking a lot of sugar and require a lot of sugar. A lot of women will get into pre-diabetic or diabetic gestational diabetes zones because of the sugar metabolism that ramps up. And a female that's pregnant will have to eat a lot to sustain that. Key vitamins that are important are folic acid. Whoops.
Why folic acid? Everyone's talking about it for some reason.
Okay, I talked about this before, but we'll talk about it again. Yes, I talked about it in the fertilization and development lecture capture, the one that I did just on my computer screen. I talk all about the reasons of this and why it's important. Folic acid is an important vitamin for formation of the nervous system. Hello, you guys listen, come on. Development of the nervous system, and that's already happening at week 3, week 4, week 5. The spinal, where the spinal cord is going to develop, thickens, rolls up, pinches in, the brain forms. Folic acid is needed for that. If you don't have adequate folic acid levels, and in a pregnant woman, they need more. They need like 200% the normal daily allowance for a non-pregnant woman. You can have problems with folding in and pinching in of the spinal cord and brain. That leads to neural tube defects, open spinal cord, open brain, or lack of a brain forming. That's one of the number 1 neural tube defects, or one of the number 1 congenital defects. And guess why? 4 weeks is when the nervous system is developing. Folic acid is needed at higher than normal levels at that point. When do most women figure out that they're actually pregnant?
13.
After that.
8 weeks.
After that, okay? Missed period, going on, kind of regular, I don't know, but doing a pregnancy test. So the point with this, and I'll end here, we'll come back to pregnancy. Maybe I'll do lecture capture on some of this. I don't know. Should I just do it in class on Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it in class. But let me just end with pregnancy, prenatal vitamins. As soon as a woman knows that they're pregnant, this is why they ask, are you on oral contraceptive pills? That's hormones. Ooh, a lot of estrogen, right? Are you taking prenatal vitamins? And you need to start taking that right away. Matter of fact, if a woman is of reproductive age and they are any way, shape, or form thinking that they could get pregnant or they want to get pregnant or it's in the near future, they should already, in my opinion, be taking prenatal vitamins. Does that make sense? And actually, they grow hair, nails, everything. This is all the pregnancy. Prenatal vitamins actually grow hair and nails quite nicely, skin, all this stuff. I will see you tonight. I'll end it right there. We'll talk more about pregnancy on Monday. Okay.